Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Juliet Clark. Thanks for being on the show, Juliet.
Thank you for having me, Whitney.
And if you haven't heard of Juliet, I want to tell you a little bit about her, and I hope your ears have perked up and you're paying attention. If you are trying to brand yourself and you're trying to learn how to publish maybe a book or publish something, or she's somebody that you want to reach out to. But a little about her: she's a dynamic and sought after speaker and podcaster who has spent the last 20 years helping authors, coaches, speakers, and small businesses all over the world build expert platforms. Has worked on major accounts like Nissan and Mattel, a writer of 6 best-selling mystery novels, top producing real estate agent before starting her own publishing company. Juliet, thank you again for your time. I'm looking forward to this conversation. And you're a prime guest, for the show, and people sometimes they can't think out of the box and think, well, wait a minute, she's not syndicating deals. But I'm like, wait a minute, she has a skill. She's an expert in something that like most of us, a lot of us in this industry are trying to, perfect and that marketing piece or that branding piece and how we're building those expert platforms. So looking forward to the conversation. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on your background and your expertise, and let's jump in.
So, yes, thank you. I started out in traditional publishing and from there moved on to advertising, worked at one of the largest agencies in the world at Chiat Day, and worked on the Nissan account, which was regional, and a lot of market research happened there. So I was very open to the idea when I moved into the entrepreneurial world that we don't do as much as we should with our market research. And it really hinders the way that we gather clients, that we gather a crowd around us, and our sales. So in 2008, I was going through a really ugly divorce, a lot of time on my hands, and I wrote my first mystery novel. I'm probably best known because I killed my ex-husband in it, and we were from a small town, and everybody knew. But in all of that ugliness, it led me to self-publish my first book. And I realized very quickly from my background that the self-publishers did not have the best interest of the authors. And most of those authors were entrepreneurs, and they didn't know how to build a platform. They didn't know how to build an audience, not only to sell books, but their products and services as well. And I actually forgot to tell you in there, between Mattel and writing that book, I was actually one of the top real estate brokers at Realty Executives of Santa Clarita. I quit Mattel and I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. It lasted about 2 weeks because it's really, really hard. And so I got a broker's license and started selling real estate until my kids were a little bit older, and I wrote that book and started this company.
Wow. Okay. That's so interesting. It's your book's very interesting too. Just the whole thing, or how you wrote that and what happened. But appreciate you sharing just your background a little bit. But it's interesting you talk about like we don't do enough market research as we should. When we're beginning this process. Could you elaborate on that? Let's talk about that.
So one of the things I saw when I was on the Nissan account is, all these cars are regional. Different regions sell to different cars in different regions. And, they do a ton of research. They have their avatar, target audience, whatever you call it right now, ideal client. They have it down to finite things that they know about their audiences. And so when I moved into the entrepreneurial space, I noticed a lot of people were bringing me these books that they had written, and they would say things like, oh, I went to a business growth conference and they told me that my products and services weren't selling because I didn't have a book. And I kind of went, ooh, well, that's probably not true. You probably are either in front of the wrong audience or you're in front of the right audience with the wrong product. So when we designed this platform, we did it as an audience builder, but also a place where you could test your ideas and start having conversations about them to create better products and better marketing.
Okay, tell me about the platform a little bit. The listeners may not understand what the platform does, and then we'll go back to these details we need to know.
So what we created was a software. We use a software that takes the success principles of what you teach and puts them into categories and statements. So when people take our, I'm going to call them quizzes, when people take our quizzes, they actually are comparing themselves to the success principles that you teach. That's why it's so valuable for coaches, because it's one thing for me to tell you, Whitney, that you may have some areas where you need improvement. But if I can show you that, it's sort of like the writing concept, show, not tell. If I can show you, that's much more powerful. So this self-evaluation allows your potential clients to come in and evaluate where they're really at. And then for you, the other side of that quiz is your market research, because people are telling you where they're struggling and they're consistently telling you these things. So that's part of it. The other part is we have a section that runs on AI where we actually have statements related to, do you want to solve the problem? Are you willing to invest? And would you set an appointment? So based on those, there are autoresponders that go out with skill and commitment appropriate offers. So it's not one size fits all.
Okay. So, I'd like to go back a little bit. I know you called it a smart lead magnet. Is that right?
Yes, that's what I call it.
Yeah, smart lead magnet. I had not heard of that before, but I love that. And tell me about, let's talk about the details a little bit that we need to know, and then maybe how they're telling us these things. You talked about, these people are telling us, and maybe that's through your platform, or how that works.
So first of all, we call it a smart lead magnet because the paradigm with digital marketing has been, I'm going to trade this, what we call an even exchange, a piece of my genius for your email address. And as we all know, they may or may not ever open the email address. A lot of times they don't even open the piece of genius. So what we're doing with this platform is when we set the success parameters, they're going in and they're rating themselves by category on a scale of 1 to 10. So that's how they're telling us. When we get the results and they get the results, they understand, because of the way these are broken into categories, that they have gaps in their learning. So let's take real estate investment. If they want to be a really great real estate investor, there are things they have to learn. And if they're not getting to that point, then they need to know where those gaps are at to continue. So that's what it shows the person who takes the quiz, but it also shows you as the entrepreneur. When you start seeing those patterns over and over, you know where to create great content, number one. Number two, now you can reformat or format programs to address those specific areas.
Wow. Okay. How hard is it for us to create something like that?
Not really difficult. When we do it, we usually sit down in a consulting capacity and then we build your first one for you. So for the entrepreneurs, I think the hardest part is really narrowing down what are those 4 or 5 categories that I need to know and my clients, my potential clients need to know that they're struggling in to purchase from me. And then formatting the sections within there, because this is really designed to be a 3-minute experience. We actually say our quizzes allow you to determine who in your audience is your best client within 180 seconds, because that's what it's designed. So it's really quick.
Wow. And I'm sure you have ways of perfecting that over time.
Yes. So because it's built on the software, you may take your first run and maybe it's not giving you or your audience the information. It's super easy to go in and change things around or duplicate. I actually have 13 of them of my own, and probably 6 of them are exactly the same. I just have them on different URLs with different target audiences and just slight changes in the statements.
And tell me about how the artificial intelligence works in this, and how it understands some of this stuff.
Well, what it understands is, first of all, where people have scored themselves. So it can see if someone is very low or very high. The other way it does it is it's really key in that section. There are a series of algorithms that work in what we call the commitment section. And we literally propose statements that are, are you 100% committed to solving whatever problem? Are you willing to invest to get, and then inserting what that problem is? And would you be open to scheduling a talk with Whitney? And so based on that, the autoresponders run in the background. Let's say that somebody is very highly committed. They said, yes, I want to solve this problem. I'm willing to spend money, and I'd love to have a conversation. That person's going to get your calendar, because when you hit the submit button, an email goes out to the person who took the quiz, and an email goes out to you, so you know someone did. So that high commitment person, right away, they're going to get your calendar. The medium commitment person is a nurture space. So think about it for a minute. Maybe they've seen you talk for the first time. They love what you have to say, but they're not quite sure you're their guy. This is an opportunity for you to do some nurturing, maybe drop an article or a podcast into their LinkedIn, connect with them there, start a conversation. And then there's that whole group of the room, or, if you use it on a podcast as an ad, there's that whole group that's never going to take action. What we're really trying to do here is key in on who's ready, who's going to buy today, and let the others kind of fall back into a nurture space, or maybe not at all, because some of them will never be ready.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like this could work for pretty much any industry or any. That's another question. Is this? I noticed and the listeners that can't see this on Juliet's name on Zoom. It's after her name. It says text quiz to 64600. And so can you do this through text and through email and through like a lead magnet on your website as well?
Well, each one has a unique URL. So absolutely, you can put it on your website. In fact, if you guys want to go over, you can go to leadlogicquiz.com and actually take one. So with that unique URL, you can put it pretty much anywhere. When our people use it from stage, and we have a lot of speakers who use it, workshops, and when they go out and give talks, they actually have a slide that has it right there on it, so the audience can take 3 minutes and take it right then and there. So yeah, you can use it pretty much anywhere. Another use we have is a lot of people have Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups. You have to take it before you come into the group. So you've got lead capture before anybody comes into your world.
Love that. I love what you just said. Yeah. So a way to capture those. 'Cause I know like a Facebook group, if somebody doesn't put their email address in there, you don't really have a good way to capture some of that. And so that's awesome. Unless you're having somebody do it manually. But in talking about too, like, defining who we're talking to. I love that, because it's important. You're talking about, who's going to buy right now, right? In our case, we're looking at those investors that are ready to invest, right? But we still want to nurture those who, like you said, or maybe they're not ready, but they want to get to know us a little better. And this allows us to really cater to that. Is that right?
It does. And I haven't even mentioned there's what we call a micro commitment before you hit the submit button. And we actually take the top 3 or 4 people that come into your world, and we have people self-assess. So let's say one of them would be, maybe I'm brand new to this and, thinking about what's my next option. You're going to talk to that person much differently when you get them on the phone than you are somebody who's been around the block and just wants to increase what they're doing. So when they self-select where they're at in the process and you have that conversation, now you can speak to them in the skill appropriate level. Now, why is that important? If I'm talking to Whitney and I tell him he doesn't know I'm a beginner, and he's speaking way up here, like I'm an advanced investor, I'm probably going to become overwhelmed and walk away. Conversely, if he's talking to me, I'm an advanced investor, and he's talking to me like I'm brand new, I'm going to think, I don't know if I want to work with him. He doesn't sound like he can get me to that next level. So that's really a cue right there too, when you have those conversations, who you're talking to and what this looks like for them.
Nice. So give me some ways that people really mess this up.
That is such a great question. So there are a lot of platforms out there, and I'll just say right off the bat, SurveyMonkey. No real direction. There is a lot of neuroscience, your brain chemistry, that's behind when you take quizzes, and people don't realize that. So I'll give you an example. If you have a fill-in and you have radio buttons and you have all these different things, your brain disconnects. So that's one of the ways that people really mess this up. Another one is that they ask really invasive questions. So think about it. I don't really know you, Whitney. You're on stage, you look great, but you're asking me what my gross income is. No. And we actually have a lot of financial planners who we're working with them on theirs, because that's the first thing they ask instead of a quick and dirty, let's get to know each other first before I ask you for that. So that's another thing that people do, is they get way too invasive without a relationship. The third thing that people do, and there are a lot of platforms that do this, they'll ask simple questions that are like yes, no. And if you look at some of the platforms, I'm not going to mention what they are, they'll have like one question per page. So if I have to answer yes or no and then move on to the next page, I've disconnected.
Right.
Completely disconnected. I've forgotten about it. It doesn't matter, even when I get results. One of the things that we do by clustering these is that we show you in your results that you have a whole area that has a gap. So let's address that. And by having those statements categorized on their own individual page, people get exactly what you do and that they're not doing very well in that section. So a lot of this is neuroscience and really finding ways that you can have a lead magnet that serves you and your clients. And I think a lot of the ones that are out there don't really do that.
Wow. No, I love that. And maybe a couple tips also. I know you talked about how important just that market research was. And I wanted to come back to that, and maybe you could highlight just a couple things. Maybe we're not ready to do this, the smart lead magnet yet, but what are some ways we can just understand our market better, just so even as we're having conversations, whether it's in person or through email, we understand, that potential client better.
So first of all, having conversations, anytime you can drive people into a conversation, don't make it really salesy. Listen, really put on your active listening, because there are a lot of things that you're going to hear when you start actively listening that'll tell you that maybe they're not right for you. And a lot of times I don't think we consider that. We always look at, oh my gosh, they're here, I'm going to enroll them. One bad client can ruin you for a while. So really practice that active listening and have conversations. Don't rely on clicks. A click isn't a relationship. A click can tell you a direction they're going in, but nothing beats face-to-face or Zoom-to-Zoom communication, even phone communication. Other mistakes, other things that you can do with the market research is look thoroughly at your competition. I'm sneaky. I have a fake email address I use, and I see what all of my competitors are doing. So I can constantly keep ahead of the curve. How am I different? Because at the end of the day, they're hiring me for the most part, not just my platform. So how do I stand out? Am I being authentic? Am I in front of the right people? So there are a lot of things you can do in the market research realm that just little tweaks that'll help you a lot.
Any other, before we run out of time, but any other software that we need to be using that you're like, this is a must?
Oh, wow. I can't think of any. No. I try to be as software free as I can, because you really it can add up.
Yes.
So, yeah.
No doubt about it. So any other tips before we move on to just a few final questions, Juliet?
You know what? Be yourself when you position your questions and your statements on there, and make them very connective. Not yes, no. Make people think about this. If they're really intentional about spending money, take a deep dive. Don't be afraid of their answers, because it could be gold for you.
What's been the one thing that's contributed to your success?
Persistence.
And how do you like to give back?
Oh, I love to give back in the way of just helping people, serving. We do, like this week, we have a summit we're doing for free. I think by the time this airs, it will be gone. But for COVID-19, we put a free summit together, and it's not about selling anything. It's about, how are we going to pivot, money wise, emotionally wise. So I just like people to feel good about themselves. So hopefully I can help them do that.
Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate you giving back in that way, Juliet. Appreciate you giving back to the listeners and myself on the show. Tell them how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
You can go over to superbrandpublishing.com, or if you want to test one of the quizzes, go to leadlogicquiz.com and take one of them. You can see how they're laid out. And if you get your email, look and see where you stand with that. You can find me on Facebook over the Monday Marketing Mixer show I have with Tracy Hazard every Monday night at 5 p.m. What am I on? Mountain. 5 p.m. Mountain time. So you can find us over there too.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.